Greetings, one and all, and welcome to episode number 38 of Thoughts and Hunches, Making Money in Bunches and Sucker Punches. Your boy Stoney is back for the 38th time, Season 2, Episode 5. And I'd like to welcome all of my fellow lowlifes, hustlers, scumbags, hoodlums, fienders, degenerates. You're all back for the 38th time. You know why? Because I make you money and you're getting paid as long as you're following my plays, right? Last week wasn't great, right? Wasn't good, right? Wasn't bad, right? Could have been a lot worse. We managed to turn a very small profit in NCAA, and NFL was just a nightmare, right? Until the day started moving forward, and by Sunday night and then Monday night, we actually managed to have a respectable week in the NFL, leaving us 14-13 on the week. Not good, right? Certainly not bad, right? Could have been a hell of a lot worse, but could have been a hell of a lot better after, like I said, a pretty good day in the NCAA, but then the NFL just fell apart for us. I mean, after a blistering start, the NFL just fell apart for us. So anyway, our numbers right now, we're sitting on the season. NCAA, we're 32-30 for the season, 51%. Not good. We'll get that up to 57, 58%. We just had a miserable first 2 weeks. That was basically the kicker. NFL, 71%. I mean, that went down from 90%, which is where we were last week. So 71%. And overall, we're at 58%. So any way you want to look at it, 58% is always the goal for us for the season. For me, 58%. You do 58%, you're doing something right. And we've been doing something right all season. So anyway, before we get on to the picks, I got to give you my take. And this week's take is about the NFL narrative. If you're a sports degenerate like I am, right? And whether you bet or not, but even if you just watch sports, right? You come home from work, you turn on that 6 p.m. Eastern time ESPN Sports Center, 3 o'clock on the West Coast, 5 o'clock for me in Nashville, and the top story every single day this week wasn't even Tampa Bay versus New England. It was Brady versus Belichick. That's the narrative. That's the narrative that everybody's talking about. That's the narrative that they want you to talk about. That's the narrative you want to think about because that's all that matters. Forget the fact that the MLB is in the last week of the season and the playoffs are a mere 4 days away. Everything's going to be decided in 2 days in MLB, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, but in 2 days. By Sunday afternoon, we're going to know who's playing who and when. I'll get to a programming note on that later on. But this is the best time of year, especially for baseball fans, right? Even if your team is shitty, right? You're probably waiting for the playoffs, especially if your team's shitty. But if your team's in it like mine is, and I'm watching them right now, and they're leading 2-0 in the bottom of the third, this is it. This is what it's all about, right? The Giants could win 105 games, or they've won 105 games, and that's not going to be enough. It's going to take 106 or 107 wins to put this away because they've been red hot. The Dodgers have been red hot. Everybody's playing against each other, and it's just phenomenal. This is great. The American League wild card has 4 teams basically still in the running, and they're all going nuts trying to knock each other out. Yankees lost tonight. Mariners are playing right now. It's just crazy with what's going on. But that doesn't matter because it's all about Brady versus Belichick, right? But who cares about Brady versus Belichick if you don't live in Boston or Tampa Bay? I mean, it's just, I don't get it. I really don't. I understand the NFL is the king, but the talking heads that I listen to, from Dan Patrick to Clay Travis to Jim Rome to everybody, all the national people that I listen to, are all about Brady versus Belichick. In the morning on my way to work, I'm listening to Fox Sports Radio. That's all they talk about. It's insane. I'm just done with it, right? We got a long way to go in this football season. Baseball season's at its pinnacle, and you're talking about a meaningless game, basically, this Sunday night. It really is a meaningless game. Doesn't matter who wins, because Tampa Bay is going to make the playoffs. New England might, right? But if New England falls to 1-3, then they'll be in trouble. But who cares? I'm watching baseball. That's all that matters right now is baseball. But with that being said, let's get to the picks. NCAA picks this week. Here we go. Strap in and let's get to work. 12 p.m. tomorrow, ACC matchup. Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta. Georgia Tech, 3.5-point dogs at home to Pitt. The Panthers come in at 3-1. They have one marquee win, I guess you can kind of call it that, against Tennessee. They beat up Tennessee, but, I mean, can you call that a marquee win? I know my friends here in Nashville won't like me saying it, but Tennessee ain't shit. Tennessee's not a good football team. And if that's your own marquee win, then you're in trouble. And they come in as 3.5-point chalk on the road against the Georgia Tech team that took Clemson to the wire 2 weeks ago and last week blew out a good North Carolina team. Georgia Tech's hot right now. Their dual threat quarterback, Jeff Sims, is really something else. He's running, he's throwing, he's basically doing it all. Now, Pitt does have a good defense, and they have their own dynamic quarterback in Kenny Pickett, but they just don't have enough. They don't have enough weapons. Georgia Tech right now is doing it on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. They're the hotter team. This spread looks a little fishy, like the wise guys know something, but we're going to stick with Georgia Tech. We're going to take the Jackets plus 3.5. Next up, game 2, we move on to Columbia, Missouri. And just as I was talking about UT, Missouri is 2.5-point favorites at home against the Tennessee Vols. The Vols are 2-2. No marquee wins, none whatsoever, right? Missouri is 2-2 also, and they lost to Kentucky, and then they lost last week to Boston College. But their quarterback, let me tell you, Connor Bazelak, is really, really good. He's got something going and something brewing. And Tennessee may think they have a pretty good defense, and they do. I'll give them some props. But Bazelak's going to pick them apart. Missouri's going to win this one, and they're going to win it pretty easily. Lay the 2.5. Take the Tigers. 12 p.m. Camp Randall Stadium in Madtown, Wisconsin. And it's going to be Madtown tomorrow. Madison is going to be on full tilt as Wisconsin is a 2-point chalk against 14th ranked Michigan. Jim Harbaugh comes in, right? He's 4-0. He's got his team off to a 4-0 start. But their wins, I mean, Rutgers and Washington are notable wins. The other two are meaningless, so they don't really matter. Wisconsin's only 1-2. They've only played 3 games. They haven't looked good, right? They have lost, and now 2 of their losses are to legit teams. They've lost to Notre Dame and Penn State, and there's no harm in losing to either one of those. But they do it with defense. Michigan does it with defense. It's going to be a defensive struggle, but I'm going to take the home Badgers because they're tougher at home. If this game were in Michigan, I'd probably feel different, but I like Wisconsin. This is going to be a slugfest, and I enjoy these in the trenches games, and I just like Wisconsin's offensive line a little bit better. So I'm going to take the Badgers and lay the 2. Moving on, back to the SEC, Sundays in the South. The 3 Fs. Football, family, and faith, family, and football are the 3 Fs that we live by down here in the South. Well, Arkansas is the hot team. They're 8th. They're ranked 8th right now. They're the team du jour right now. Everybody's big on them. But they travel to Sanford Stadium in Athens to take on second-ranked Georgia right now, who is just steamrolling teams. And they're making everything look easy. Both teams are 4-0. Right? Georgia's beat South Carolina which is whatever, and they beat Clemson, which was very impressive. And they do it with defense. JT Daniels, their quarterback, has been in and out of health. Their offense is good, not great, but it doesn't have to be when your defense is great. On the other side of the ball, Arkansas right now is doing it on both sides, right? They're 4-0, and they have a couple of really big-time wins over Texas, and then last week they blasted Texas A&M, a really good Texas A&M team, and they beat them up and made them look pedestrian. Quarterback KJ Jefferson right now is playing on another level for Arkansas. He's doing really well, right? He's averaging 10.8 yards per passing attempt. That's second in the NCAA, and that's saying something, because nowadays everything's check down. But Arkansas is not afraid to throw the ball deep and stretch the defense. Now, Jefferson's going to need time to do this against Georgia's defense, but I like Jefferson. I like Arkansas. 16.5 points is just too many points to be giving to the 8th-ranked team in the nation. I'm going to take the Hogs on the road. If Georgia wins this game by 3 touchdowns, fine, so be it. That's the way it goes. But I like the Hogs. I'm going to roll with the Hogs and all those points on the road. Next up, we head into the great state of Texas and Fort Worth. The Longhorns come in 4-point favorites on the road against TCU. TCU right now is 2-1, and they barely beat Cal, and that's really their only win that you can look at. But Cal is Cal, and they're average at best. They did lose to SMU pretty convincingly last week. SMU beat them up. And Texas, on the other hand, is 3-1. Their only loss was to Arkansas, like I just said, and there's no harm in losing to them. But since then, they've just been blasting teams, right? Ever since then, they beat Rice 58-0, and then last week Steve Sarkisian hung 70 on Texas Tech. I had Texas Tech, certainly didn't go well for me there, but Texas rolled, hung 70 on it, on Tech, and it all starts with running back Bijan Robinson. The guy is just really something special. He rushed for 69 yards in their only loss against Arkansas, but since then, all the other games, all the other wins, 103 yards, 127 yards, and 137 yards last week. Robinson's the key to this offense. He's going to get the offense going. TCU is in trouble, and Texas is going to beat them up pretty easily. Call this one the lock of the week. Take the Horns, lay the 4. And yes, Captain Italia, Bevo will be in attendance. Well, I don't know. No, Bevo will not be in attendance because it's on the road. But War Bevo. Moving on, Louisville versus Louisville versus Wake Forest in the ACC. This is a 12:30 start down in Winston-Salem. Wake Forest is 4-0. They're ranked 24th. They're playing good ball, but this game just has shootout written all over it. They played each other 2 years ago in 2019. The final score was 62-59 in favor of Louisville. The last 5 meetings, these two teams have combined for an average of 994 yards of total offense. That's just insane. The total 63. I'm going to take the over because one team's going to score 50. And who cares who wins? Doesn't matter. One team scores 50. This game's going to fly over 63. So bet the over. Louisville, Wake Forest, over 63. Moving on, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. The classic Notre Dame start at home in South Bend under touchdown Jesus. A lot of people are calling this one the game of the week. Some people are calling the Arkansas-Georgia game the game of the week. Some people are calling Ole Miss-Bama the game of the week. There's a lot of really good games this week featuring ranked teams. Well, number 7 Cincinnati comes into South Bend as 2-point favorites against the 9th-ranked Irish. This one's going to be a good one. The Irish are 4-0, right? They have wins over Purdue and Wisconsin the last 2 weeks, and those are good wins. those are quality wins, right? Now, they did cover those, right? Where the first 2 weeks they did not cover against much, much lesser opponents. But here's the key: Notre Dame is 9-1 against American Athletic Conference teams since the AAC was invented a couple years ago. Last week in their win against Wisconsin, they had 2 pick sixes and a kickoff return in the fourth quarter, which made that score get out of hand late. But it was a good game up until the fourth quarter. Notre Dame only rushed for 3 yards last week. 3 yards against Wisconsin, which is another reason why I like Wisconsin over Michigan. 3 yards rushing. Now, they have won 26 straight at home, and Notre Dame Stadium is exactly that. I mean, it's a house of horrors for everybody that goes in. But Cincinnati, let me tell you something. Luke Fickell is doing an amazing job there. They're ranked 7th. This is probably their biggest game ever that they've had, right? They can win this game. They can move into the top 5 very, very easily. They're 3-0. They have wins over Maryland and Indiana. They're really doing something special there, and their defense is better than their offense. Their offense is no joke, but the defense is just fantastic. And Fickell has done a great job building up this defense. 44.3 completion percentage against their defense. 44% teams are converting pass plays. And that's number 1 in all of the FBS. I like Cincinnati here. I like their defense. Notre Dame's going to have some serious trouble scoring. Cincinnati's not going to light up the scoreboard. They're not going to score in the 30s. But Cincinnati's going to win this game. And I'm going to take the Bearcats, lay the 2 on the road in South Bend. Moving on, Big Ten action in Piscataway, New Jersey. 11th ranked Ohio State comes in as 15.5-point chalk against the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. Ohio State's 3-1. They lost to Oregon a few weeks ago. They did beat Minnesota and back in week 1, and they've been playing well since the loss to Oregon. But not a lot of people. There's not a lot of faith going on for Ohio State right now. Rutgers, on the other hand, they're 3-1. They lost but covered against Michigan last week. That's their only loss, and they do have wins over Syracuse and Temple. I like the Scarlet Knights. Too many points, 15.5. I'll take them all day long. Rutgers, could they shock the world in Piscataway? No, they're not going to win this game. But 15.5, I'll take it all day long. Moving on to the Big 12 now. We move to the Little Apple. Manhattan, Kansas. 6th ranked Oklahoma comes in as 11.5-point favorites against Kansas State. This is a 3:30 p.m. start, Eastern time. Oklahoma's 4-0. Hey, that's why they're ranked 6th. Well, they were ranked higher, but they've dropped a little because they haven't looked good in their wins. Yeah, they're 4-0, and they have wins over West Virginia and Nebraska, but they didn't cover either one of those. Spencer Rattler was the preseason Heisman favorite. He's not playing well. Oklahoma's defense is playing very well, and that's been the surprise so far, which is probably why they're 4-0, because they're 4-0 in spite of their offense. K-State, on the other hand, they're 3-1. They lost last week in Stillwater to Oklahoma State, and that was a tough one because I had K-State, and they just didn't look right. They do have wins over Stanford, Nevada, and they're a running team, and they run the ball, and they feature the Deuce Vaughn, right? When the Deuce gets loose, Manhattan will be going nuts, and the Little Apple, I'm taking K-State. Now, they could shock the world. I don't see it, but 11.5 is a big number, and I'll take K-State at home. Moving on to the Pac-12, 3:30 p.m. start. 3rd ranked Oregon heads to the Farm in Palo Alto. 7.5 point favorites over Stanford. Stanford's 2-2, and they've lost to K-State and last week to UCLA. No harm in those losses. Two good, two good losses, and a win over USC and a win over lowly Vanderbilt. The win over USC was impressive, but that was the week after, or that was actually when their coach got fired. And Stanford is one of those teams that are just hard to, they're really hard to get their a handle on what the hell they're trying to accomplish. Now, I'm a huge, huge fan of Stanford and the way the program has been built. And David Shaw is just amazing. He's an unbelievable coach. But they're in trouble tomorrow. Oregon's coming in ranked third. They do it with speed. They're 4-0. They have a couple of marquee wins over ranked opponents. They've already beaten Fresno and they beat Ohio State, and those were Fresno State, for those of you that don't know, is ranked, right? And Fresno State is no joke. So Oregon is doing it, and they're doing it with speed, and they're doing it with a very fast defense, and they're doing it well. I don't understand how Stanford is going to be able to keep up with Oregon's speed here. Oregon's going to win. They're going to win this one easily. They're 7.5 point chalk. Lay them all day long. Could this be the marquee matchup of the day? 3:30 p.m. in Tuscaloosa, where I was last Saturday night in a luxury suite doing it. Alabama, number one ranked, top ranked, 14.5 point chalk at home against 12th seeded Ole Miss. A lot can be made about this game, whether it's Saban versus Kiffin. They're buddies, they're pals. They like to jab at each other. And Lane Kiffin's had 2 weeks to prepare. He had a week off last week. So did Alabama, if you count the 49-point beatdown they hung on Southern Miss while I was there. That was just a tune-up, basically, is all it was. Because Kiffin wasn't going to, or Saban wasn't going to show Kiffin anything in that game. And he didn't. They ran the ball, they threw the ball. Bryce Young has been spectacular. Right? And that's the other storyline going into this game. For some strange reason right now, Matt Corral, the quarterback for Ole Miss, is the Heisman front runner. He's playing well. And I'm not knocking him. And Lane Kiffin has found his quarterback, and he's done a good job, and he's having a good year, a very good year. But he's not even as good as Bryce Young right now, who's third in the Heisman pecking order right now. Corral's got 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. Bryce has 15 and 1 interception. 4-0 versus 4-0. Bama, they scored 31 points in their win against Florida 2 weeks ago down in the swamp, where Florida damn near came back and won that game. And that was the one game that kind of scared people in Alabama. But, I mean, let's be honest. This is Alabama we're talking about. In their other 3 wins, they've hung 44, 48, and 63 on their opponents. Now, Ole Miss is going to score, right? But can they score as easily as they did last year? Last year, Alabama couldn't stop Ole Miss's offense, right? It didn't matter because Alabama scored in the 50s. Could that happen again tomorrow? Very possible. He hit that one to the warning track on the bottom of the 4th. Sorry. Anyway, tomorrow could be. Now, Alabama's defense, I think, this year is better than it was last year. Their offense is dynamic. It does whatever it wants, and they're going to score, and they're going to score at will. Can Ole Miss keep up? 14.5, big number. Oh, this is too many points. I like Ole Miss. They're ranked 12th. I don't. Nobody goes in Alabama and wins, period. I think Ole Miss was the last team to win in Alabama, and that was like 4 years ago. Anyway, Bama, lay the 14.5, take the Tide, roll Tide, another easy win for Bama and the top-ranked Tide. 6 p.m. Eastern Time, another SEC good matchup. This one takes place in Lexington, which is about 3 hours north of here. Florida comes in as 10th seeded, 10th ranked Florida comes in as 7.5 point chalk against the Kentucky Wildcats. And Kentucky right now is playing some ball. Florida's 3-1. Like I said, their only loss was to Alabama, and there's no harm, no foul in that. And they gave Alabama on all they could handle. But and they did bounce back with a blowout of Tennessee last week, if you call Tennessee a good team. In the meantime, Kentucky's 4-0, a very quiet 4-0. They do have wins over Missouri and South Carolina in conference. Their quarterback, Will Levis, right now is really doing some special things down there. And granted, he's no Tim Couch. Sorry, Cleveland Browns fans, but Tim Couch at UK was really something. Will Levis is really good. The reason I'm going to take the 7.5 here and roll with the Cats is because Florida's just not the same team when they leave the swamp. They're a good team, and Florida's going to win this game. But 7.5, they're basically going to have to win this game by 10 points. I don't see it. I see Kentucky, the back door could be open, and Kentucky comes in and gets that cover, possibly late, but it's going to happen. Kentucky plus 7.5 gets the cover. Moving on back to the Big 12. This one's back in Stillwater. Oklahoma State, the 19th ranked Cowboys, host the 21st ranked Baylor Bears, who are 4-0. Yeah, Baylor is 4-0, very quietly. They did beat Iowa State last week. But we all know now Ohio State's 2-2, and they're clearly not the team that everybody thought they were, including myself. I thought Iowa State was going to contend for the Big 12 championship with Oklahoma. Well, that's out the window already. Oklahoma State and Baylor, two 4-0 teams, getting after it in Stillwater. Oklahoma State, the last 2 weeks, has beaten Boise State and Kansas State, two pretty good teams. Now, they're not lighting up the scoreboard like Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy teams of the past, but this is a defense-led team, and Oklahoma State's defense is playing really well. So I'm going to lay the 4 on the road. Lay the 4 at home and take the Cowboys. 7:30 p.m., Clemson, South Carolina. The 25th ranked Clemson Tigers are not playing well. They're now 2-2. They have losses to Georgia, and they lost last week to North Carolina State, and they're still 14.5 point favorites against Boston College, who's coming into town. Now, Clemson is Clemson, and they're 5-star recruits. Their defense is legit. We all know that. There's no doubt about it. But when they beat Georgia Tech a couple weeks ago, they barely beat Georgia Tech. So, I mean, a case could be made that they could be 1-3 right now. Their offense is struggling. DJ Uiagalelei right now is not playing well. The offense is just out of sync. And Boston College right now, they're coming off a win last week over Missouri. Their running back, right, Pat Garwo III, this kid right now is running like he's possessed. Now, I'm not saying Boston College is going to go into Clemson and win. NC State got the win last week, but that was at home. It's different when you go into Clemson. But I'm going to take the 14.5 and take the Eagles. 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the Bayou, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. LSU comes in right now as 2-point underdogs to Auburn. Auburn, 22nd ranked, right? LSU's 3-1, right? They did win over Mississippi State last week, and an impressive win in Starkville, but it's Mississippi State, all right? And Mississippi State's nice, but they ain't all that. I do need to remind LSU fans that they did lose to my Bruins. UCLA hung one on LSU. So, yes. Auburn, on the other hand, they're 3-1. They lost to Penn State. No harm in that. Last week, here's the reason why I like Auburn. Last week, they should have lost. They were gifted a win on an atrocious call at the end, and they should have lost to Georgia State. You lose to Georgia State, you've got serious trouble, especially for a school like Auburn. So right now, confidence is low on Auburn. Oh, they should have lost, blah, blah, blah. They got gifted a win. Now they've got to go into the Bayou, and they're going to lose, blah, blah, blah. That's why I like Auburn, because this game is just so crazy, right? It's the Tigers versus the Tigers. It's Auburn versus LSU. Am I going to take LSU? Neaux. No. No Tigers. Tigers, Neaux. No. Tigers, no. LSU Tigers, no. Auburn Tigers, yes. Take Auburn. Lay the points. 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. UCLA versus Arizona State. The 20th ranked Bruins come in. They're 3-1. Their only loss was to ranked Fresno. They bounced back with a good win over Stanford last week, who has had UCLA's number over the years, and they did beat LSU. Keep that in mind for all you LSU fans out there. Geaux Tigers. Bullshit. UCLA beat them and beat them up and beat them easily. Arizona State, the Sun Devils, they got me a win last week over Colorado because I had Arizona State and I laid the 2 touchdowns and they won easily. And their only loss was to BYU, and there's no harm in that because BYU's legit. Quarterback Jaden Daniels has something going on at ASU, but they're not playing in Tempe. They're heading to the Rose Bowl, and they're playing a running team right now at UCLA. Zach Charbonnet right now is leading them. It's a big, strong, physical defense at UCLA, and their quarterback, dual threat, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, finally is getting Chip Kelly's offense, and I think UCLA wins this one and wins it pretty easily. So sorry, Sun Devil fans. UCLA wins. Lay the 3. Finally, the last game of the night on Saturday, the Degenerate Special. Some of you love it. If you've been betting on it, you've been losing because I am 0-4 right now in the Degenerate Special and just looking for something. Last week I had I had USC over Oregon State, and Oregon State just beat up USC. And that's what I get for taking dogs like USC, bunch of punks. So Oregon State won, dropped me to 0-4 in the Degenerate Special. Well, this one's an 11 p.m. start. Fresno State, I already talked about them, 18th ranked. Florida State heads into Honolulu to take on Hawaii. And Fresno is a 10.5 point chalk. Fresno's 4-1. Their only loss was to Oregon. They did beat UCLA. They're playing really good ball. Last week they won, but it was a bad win because they were losing and they had to come from behind against a really, really god-awful UNLV team. They just did not look right. Hawaii, on the other hand, is hit or miss. They schedule some tough games, then they lose to bad teams. They're 2-3. They haven't beaten anybody. They lost to Oregon State and San Jose State, but they covered both of those games. Fresno wins, but Hawaii covers. I'll take the 10.5. I'll take Hawaii and take the 10.5. And there's your 17 NCAA plays for this week. 17. Yeah, we're looking to go, I don't know, 10-7, 11-6 wouldn't suck, but I'll take 10-7 all day long. Moving on to the NFL, and we're going to do this rapid fire because we're already 33 minutes into this, and the Giants are still winning. You know, every time I look up, it's Anthony DeSclafani, it's the Giants, it's Giant baseball. Anyway, NFL football for Sunday and Monday. Let's start with the Bills and the Texans. This has Blowout City all over it. Lay the 17.5, lay the 20. Bills are steamrolling teams right now after that week 1 loss to Pitt. They've bounced back and they're crushing teams. The Texans beat Jacksonville in week 1. Since then, they've been a disaster, and they're going to continue to be a disaster. This one's in Orchard Park. Buffalo wins. Buffalo wins easily. Bills Mafia roll on. Next up, Panthers versus Cowboys. 2 3-0 teams against the spread. The Cowboys are 2-1. They're at home. They're 4.5 point chalk. against the surprising Panthers. The Panthers are 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the number. They're doing it with a good, young, dynamic defense. They're not turning the ball over. Yes, I realize that they're missing Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey were playing, this game would be closer to a pick 'em. But Sam Darnold is playing well. He's not turning the ball over. Granted, Dak is better, and Dak's going to put up numbers. And Dallas wins this game late with a field goal, but that doesn't cover. I'll take the Panthers plus 4.5. Moving on to Miami, South Florida. The 0-3 Colts come in to face the 1-2 Dolphins, and the Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites. I like the Colts. Miami right now has regressed. They're not playing well. They don't look that good. Granted, the Colts are 0-3, but they had the mother of all schedules to start this season. And Wentz is in or out. They don't know who's playing. They don't know who's quarterback. They don't know if he's healthy. But I'm going to take the 2.5. I think the Colts win this one outright. This is my lock of the week in the NFL. I like the Colts moneyline play. Next up, Minnesota is at home against Cleveland. Cleveland comes in 2-1. They're 1.5-point favorites over the 1-2 Vikings. I like the Vikings. I think this could be a trap game. It's a reverse turf home underdog. I like Minnesota at home. They showed it last week. They played really well, and they're going to do it again, and they could knock off the Browns. The Browns are a good team, but the Browns were a popular team at the start of the season. They're going to lose, and they're going to fall to 2-2. Take Minnesota. Take the 1.5. Take them on the money line. Again, another dog wins outright. New Orleans at home, 7.5-point shock against the New York Giants. The Saints are 2-1. The Giants are 0-3. Take the Saints. Lay the 7.5. New York is awful. New York is not getting any better. All New York teams right now, well, not all. I'm at Buffalo. You take them out of the equation. But the Jets and the Giants, the case could be made they're the two worst teams in football. Some will tell you Jacksonville is, but New York has just been, both of them have just been utter disasters. Take the Saints, lay the 7.5. Moving on to the next game, same thing. Titans, minus 7.5, 2-1. Head to New York. This one's on the road, and they're playing the Jets, who are 0-3, and the Jets are just a train wreck right now. The Titans have some injuries. Julio Jones is out, A.J. Brown is out, and yeah, their wide receivers are out, but you don't throw to beat the Jets, you run to beat the Jets. And what does Tennessee do best? Say hello to King Henry 30 times, Jets. King Henry's going to go off. He's going to have a big game, and the Titans are going to win this one easily. Lay the 7.5. Another 7-point spread is Kansas City heading into Philly to take on the Eagles. Kansas City's 7-point favorites. Kansas City's 1-2. We all know about the Chiefs. Oh my God, they're 1-2. They're in last place. What the hell's going on? They're not going to go 17-0. Well, if you thought they were going 17-0, you're drunk anyway. But Kansas City just doesn't cover, period. I'm not big on Philadelphia, but I'm big on anybody that's playing the Chiefs right now. In their last 13 games against the point spread, they are 1-12 against the spread. 1-12. They win games, but they don't cover numbers. I'm going to take the Eagles plus 7, and I'm going to keep betting against the Chiefs until they prove me wrong. Moving on to what's probably the game of the day, two 3-0 teams, Rams versus Cards in L.A., SoFi Stadium. Everybody's big on the Cards right now and their big hot start, and right now they're doing it on both sides of the ball. Kyler Murray is really blossoming and turning into a superstar and an MVP candidate. But right now, the MVP favorite is probably Matt Stafford, who I think is still overrated, and I still don't think the Rams can run the ball. They can't run the ball as well as Arizona can, but the Rams' defense is much better than Arizona's. I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to lay the 4 at home. Rams win surprisingly easily. Next up, another good game. 2-1 Baltimore heads to Denver to take on the undefeated Broncos. Yeah, the Broncos are 3-0, people. Yes, believe it. Broncos are 1-point favorites. I like the Broncos at home. That defense is playing well. Lamar Jackson isn't quite healthy. They're still looking for a running game, even though they lead the NFL in rushing because of Lamar. This Broncos defense is legit. And Teddy Two Gloves is playing good ball. He's not turning the ball over, and that's why Denver's 3-0. I'm going to take the Broncos. Broncos moved to 4-0. Yes, the Broncos will be 4-0. Next up, we got Pittsburgh, the train wreck that the Pittsburgh Steelers have become. They're 1-2. They did get that win in week 1 somehow over Buffalo, but since then have looked god awful. Now they've got to head into the house of horrors that is Lambeau Field to face a Green Bay team that is feeling it right now after their big win over the 49ers back on Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers seems to have gotten his groove back. Packers are 6.5-point favorites. I'm going to lay that all day long. Packers win easily. Bucks and Pats Sunday night. Here's the game everybody wants to talk about. It's Brady versus Belichick. No, it's not. It's New England versus Tampa Bay. Period. Bucks 2-1, Pats 1-2. The Bucks 7-point chalk. Lay the 7 all day long. Take TB12. The Brady Express comes in because, like Michael Jordan, he's got that memory. And he doesn't let anybody forget it. And I have a feeling he's going to go in and he's going to hang a pretty easy one on his former coach. And the Bucks win easily. Lay the 7. They're going to win by double digits. Monday night, last game on the docket. Chargers versus Raiders. Another good matchup. Really good matchup. Chargers are 2-1. They're playing good ball. Raiders are 3-0. Surprising 3-0. Giants lead 2-0. Top 5. 2 outs in the 5th. DeSclafani, Dylan, doing it. Raiders are 3-0, and they're doing it on both sides of the ball. Their defense is surprisingly good. Derek Carr is an MVP candidate. They're starting to get their running game together, and they've got everything going right. But they're playing the Chargers. The Chargers are 3-point favorite at home. A lot of people are going to be on the Raiders. They're a popular pick, especially on a Monday night game. But the Chargers right now seem to have that thing going. Giants are through 5, 2-0. Anyway, I'm going to take the Chargers on Monday night. I'm going to lay the 3. Chargers win pretty easily. And there you have it. There's 12 NFL plays matched up with my 17 NCAAs, giving you 29 plays for the week. 17 wins would be fantastic. We'll take it. We'll go 17-12 and laugh all our way to the bank. Anything more is just icing on the cake. So bet big and let's go big this week. Quick shout outs this week. I got 3 of them. Number 1 goes to Captain Italia, who I already mentioned earlier, who has an unnatural fixation on Bevo, the Texas Longhorns mascot. And he's always the first guy to comment on my videos. He watches all my videos. He loves my videos. He's my cousin. I love him. He's not really my cousin. He married my cousin, but he's my cousin. Captain Italia, shout out. Keep it up, homeboy. And the other 2 go to Lugo and JoJo. The gruesome twosome. JoJo's at USF. Lugo's at ASU. I miss you, JoJo. Next time your dad wants to come down to Tuscaloosa to visit your sister, come. Please come so I can see you. I'd rather see you than Lugo. Lugo's a clown. We all know this. He's a Sun Devil clown. And his Sun Devils are going to get taken apart by my Bruins on Saturday night. Anyway, Lugo, JoJo, Captain Italia, you guys get the shout outs this week. And finally, just remember, if you're going to win big, you got to bet big. Also, to me, the action is the juice, because that's all that matters. And, of course, there's money on the streets that can't be ignored. And finally, good luck to you. Have a good weekend, everybody. Hum baby. Go Giants.